In court, my ex-husband held my hand and told me his new wife deserved my house as a fresh start. He didn't know that for 20 years, the deed had been a time bomb, and the judge was about to light the fuse. Before continuing, write where you are from or what time it is. The end of my 20-year marriage arrived on a Tuesday at 8:14 p.m. It didn't come with a crash or a scream. It came with the quiet, clinical precision of a severance package. Marcus waited until I had cleared our dinner plates, salmon and asparagus I had cooked from a recipe I had found. He hadn't touched his. He sat at the head of the walnut table in the dining room I had designed and steepled his hands. It was his quarterly review posture. "Naomi," he began, his voice the smooth, reasonable tone he used to close a deal. "I'm no longer happy. I haven't been for some time." The stack of porcelain plates in my hands suddenly felt impossibly heavy. The words were so cliché, I almost felt detached, like I was watching a bad movie. He didn't wait for me to speak. "I've been thinking about my future, about the next chapter, and this." He gestured vaguely at the room, at the life I had built, at the past 2 decades. "This isn't it anymore." He finally looked at me. His gaze wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was empty. It was the look a CEO gives a loyal employee before handing them a box for their desk. "I filed for divorce," he said. The plates rattled. I set them down carefully on the sideboard, my movements slow, a desperate attempt to keep my world from tilting off its axis. 20 years. I had been the quiet engine. My graphic design agency, Dubois Design, had started in a spare bedroom. It was my income that paid for this house. My income paid for our vacations, for the expensive schools, for the very salmon on his plate. Marcus, with his charisma and tailored suits, was brilliant at selling the image I funded. I had always thought we were a team. I had been a fool. A raw whisper escaped me. "Is there someone else?" He had the decency to hesitate, but it was just annoyance at the untidiness of the question. "That's not the point, Naomi," he said dismissively. "The point is we've grown apart. It's time to be honest and move forward." He stood up, adjusting the cuffs of his shirt. The meeting was over. "I'll be staying at the club for a while," he said, already walking away. "My lawyer will be in touch with yours." He walked out the front door. There was no shouting, no argument. My marriage hadn't ended in a fire. It had simply been liquidated. The house, my sanctuary, was suddenly vast and silent. I moved through it like a ghost. I was halfway up the stairs, my hand gripping the banister, when my phone vibrated in my pocket. I flinched. A text message. It was an alert from our joint bank account. I opened it. My vision tunneled. It was a charge notification, processed just 10 minutes ago. Charge, 2,180 Zaos, the Regis Hotel, rooftop bar. My stomach hollowed out. The blood drained from my face. He wasn't at the club. He wasn't grieving the end of our life. He was celebrating. My thumb trembled as I scrolled to my contacts. I pressed the name. She picked up on the second ring. "Anna?" My voice cracked. "He's gone." Marcus left me. There was a sharp intake of breath, then her voice. Pure steel. "Where are you?" "Home. The dining room." "No, you're not. Get your coat. Put on lipstick. I'm calling an Uber to your door right now. You're not sitting in that house alone." "Anna, I can't. You're a single woman with an excellent portfolio, Naomi. Get up. We're going out." The call ended. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with the car's arrival. I stared at my reflection in the hallway mirror, a pale, stunned woman. I wiped my face, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door. I pushed open the heavy glass doors to the Regis rooftop bar, the city lights glittering below like a carpet of fallen stars. And that's when I saw him. He was at a prime table near the railing, holding court, his laughter echoing across the terrace. He looked vibrant, energized, a man reborn. And across from him, her hand resting intimately on his, was a young woman. She couldn't have been older than 28. She had the kind of effortless honey blonde beauty that feels like a personal insult when your world has just imploded. Her dress was a sliver of silk. A cold, sickening certainty washed over me. This was not a colleague. This was not a friend. This was her. This was the next chapter Marcus had been planning. He saw me. His eyes met mine, and for a half-second, pure panic flashed across his face. He hadn't expected to see me here, in his new world, but the panic was instantly replaced by a cool, defiant arrogance. It was a power move. He stood up, pulling his young companion with him. He began to walk toward our table. "Naomi," he said, his voice smooth as silk, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "I didn't expect to see you out." "Anna insisted," I said. My voice miraculously was steady. He gestured to the young woman. "This is Isabel Thorne, a colleague." "Colleague. Izzy, this is Naomi." Isabel. Izzy. The name was as young and bright as she was. She looked at me, and her smile was a masterpiece of condescending pity. It was a smile that said, "Oh, you're the old one, the one being replaced. How sad for you." It was the smile of pure, unadulterated victory. "It's so nice to finally meet you," she said, her voice a light musical chime. "Marcus has told me so much about you." I had no doubt he had. I had no doubt it was a carefully edited story, casting him as the long-suffering husband finally escaping a stale marriage. I said nothing. I just absorbed the scene, my designer's eye taking in every detail, the way her hand was still possessively on his arm, the brand new watch on her wrist. My breath caught. I recognized that watch. It was a rare Swiss model Marcus had been admiring for months, one I'd refused to buy him for Christmas because the price tag was obscene. He had bought it for her. He looked at her with a foolish, doting adoration he hadn't given me in a decade. They finally moved on. I watched them go, a handsome, successful man and his beautiful new love. "Well," Anna said, her voice a low, dangerous growl, "at least we know the name of the woman trying to steal your net worth." I took a long, slow sip of my martini. The cold burn of the gin did nothing to numb the wound. I had just met my replacement, and she was already wearing my husband and my money. The following Monday, I walked into Anna Sharma's law office. The space was sleek, modern, and radiated intimidating competence. Today, she was not my friend. She was my lawyer, one of the most feared divorce attorneys in the city. "Okay, Naomi," she said, closing the door. "No more shock. From this moment, this is not a tragedy. It is a business negotiation. You are the CEO of Your Life, Inc., and we are liquidating a non-performing asset. Got it?" Her toughness was a life raft. Got it. Good. She sat opposite me, a yellow legal pad her only weapon. Let's audit. Every asset, every account, every stock, every bond. I want the complete picture. We went through it all. My business, its valuation, upwards of $3,000, the investments, the retirement accounts. Finally, Anna leaned forward. "Okay, the big one. The fortress. 125 Willow Creek Lane. Tell me about the house." "What about it?" I said. "We bought it 20 years ago. It's worth a fortune now, probably 1.2 million. "I know what it is, Naomi," she said patiently. "I want to know who owns it, on paper. Tell me about the title deed." A small dusty door in the back of my mind creaked open. A memory surfaced, sharp and clear. "Yes," I said, a strange new note in my voice. "Everything is in order." Anna's eyes narrowed. She knew me too well. What does in order mean exactly? And so I told her. I told her about the down payment, about the closing, about a busy, rainy afternoon 2 decades ago. As I spoke, Anna's professional mask began to crack. A slow, sharp, predatory smile spread across her face. It was the smile of a hunter who has just spotted a fatal, unexpected weakness in her prey. When I finished, she leaned back, a low, appreciative whistle escaping her lips. "Oh, Naomi," she said, her voice a purr of pure delight. "Oh, you magnificent, beautiful, unintentional genius." She tapped her pen on the pad. "This changes everything," she said. "This isn't just a negotiating chip. This is the whole game." Anna's eyes were shining. "This is our checkmate." The memory, which had been a forgotten file, came back with cinematic clarity. It was the spring of 2007. I was 26, a newlywed. My tiny agency, then just Naomi Dubois Designs, had just landed its first major contract, a huge rebranding project for a regional bank. The fee was $85,000. It was more money than I had ever seen in my life. Marcus was a junior salesman then, full of charm, but with a salary that barely covered our cramped apartment. My contract was our ticket out. I found the house on my own, a neglected colonial on Willow Creek Lane, with good bones and a garden overgrown with weeds. I saw our future there. The $85,000 from my contract was the entire down payment. I remember the pride I felt signing that check, the first brick in the life I was building. The day of the closing was a frantic, rain-swept Tuesday in May. I had my final presentation for the bank in the morning, and the closing was at 2 p.m. Marcus was supposed to meet me at the lawyer's office. I stood in the wood-paneled office, the air thick with the smell of old paper. 2 became 2:15, then 2:30. My phone finally rang. It was Marcus, his voice tinny and full of static. "Babe, I'm so sorry. I'm completely swamped. My biggest client just walked in. There's no way I can get out of this. You're going to have to handle the closing on your own. You can do that, right?" I was disappointed, but I told myself I understood. "Of course," I said, trying to keep the tremor from my voice. "Don't worry, I can handle it." So I did. I sat at that long, polished table and signed a mountain of documents. When we got to the final one, the title deed, the lawyer paused. "Now for the name on the title," he said. "Since you are the sole source of the down payment and will be the primary name on the mortgage, we can list it in your name alone as your sole and separate property. Or we can list it in both your names as joint tenants." I hesitated. The romantic newlywed wanted to put both our names on it. But the practical, newly minted business owner, the woman who had single-handedly earned the money to make this happen, had a different instinct. It was a split-second gut feeling. "My name alone, please," I said. "It's just cleaner. For now." The lawyer nodded. "As you wish. What name will you be taking title under?" I hadn't even legally changed my name yet. The paperwork was still sitting on our cluttered kitchen counter. "My maiden name," I said. "Naomi Dubois." I signed Naomi Dubois, a name I hadn't used in 20 years, a name that was now, I realized with a jolt of electrifying clarity, legally and irrevocably tied to the single greatest asset of my marriage. It wasn't a secret. It wasn't a trick. It was just a fact from a busy afternoon. A fact that Marcus, in his rush to build his own career on the foundation of my success, had either never known or had long since forgotten. The first volley in the legal war arrived a week later. A sleek, black-clad courier delivered a thick, heavy envelope. I sat at my dining room table, his execution chamber, and opened it. The documents inside were a testament to the breathtaking scope of his entitlement. I read through the legalese, my shock hardening into a cold, diamond-hard anger. He wasn't just asking for a divorce. He was demanding a hostile takeover. His demands were audacious. First, 50% of my business, Dubois Design, which his lawyer had conveniently valued at $3,000. He claimed his supportive role and corporate networking were direct contributions to my success. Second, spousal support, to the tune of $10,000 a month to maintain the lifestyle I had funded. But the crown jewel was the house. Third, sole and exclusive possession of the marital home at 125 Willow Creek Lane. He argued he was the one being displaced and deserved it for his emotional stability. But the most telling part was the language. The entire petition was built on the absolute, unshakable, and completely false assumption that the house was joint property. The parties shared real estate, the jointly held property. They had no idea. They were so blinded by arrogance, so convinced of the narrative of the successful husband, that they had not bothered to check the actual legal ownership. I sat there in the quiet, sunlit dining room of the house they were trying to take from me, and I started to laugh. They were building a magnificent legal case on a foundation of pure sand. I scanned the entire document and emailed it to Anna. The subject line was one word: salvo. Her reply came in less than 2 minutes. Don't. Breathe. I'm on my way. And for God's sake, open that expensive bottle of wine you've been saving. An hour later, Anna was sitting opposite me, the offending petition spread out between us like a battle map. She read through it, that slow, predatory smile returning. "This," she said, finally looking up, her eyes shining with a warrior's glee, "is the most beautifully arrogant piece of legal fiction I have ever had the pleasure of reading. His lawyer is either lazy or a complete idiot, probably both." "So, what do we do?" I asked, pushing a glass of wine toward her. "We respond, right? We send them a copy of the deed and tell them they've made a catastrophic error. Shut this whole thing down." It was my designer's instinct. Identify the error, correct it immediately. Anna took a long, slow sip. Her eyes narrowed. "No," she said finally, "we do not." I stared at her. "What do you mean, no?" "Why on earth wouldn't we?" "Because, my dear, heartbroken and soon to be fabulously vindicated friend," she said, leaning forward, "your husband has just handed us the rope. Our job is not to show it to him. Our job is to let him meticulously and publicly hang himself with it." She explained the strategy. It was as brilliant as it was ruthless. "Right now," she said, "they are operating under the delusion that they have a legal claim to this house. It is the cornerstone of their entire case. It's the foundation for his ridiculous demand for your business. He's building his new life with Izzy on the assumption that he gets this house." She took another sip. "If we correct him now, he'll be humiliated, yes. But he will also recalibrate. He'll pivot. He'll come after your business even harder. The fight will be messy, about a dozen different things. But if we say nothing," her smile returned, sharp and dangerous, "we let him build his entire case, his entire public narrative around getting this house. We let him posture. We let him build his pedestal as high as he possibly can." I began to see the cold, brutal genius of it. "We will fight him on every other point," she continued. "We will counter his offer for your business. We will laugh his spousal support claim out of the room. But on the house, we will be vague. We will be non-committal. We will simply say, the disposition of the marital home is a matter for the court to decide. We offer no correction. We let him march his army onto a minefield." The strategy was painful. It meant enduring months of his posturing. It meant sitting in meetings listening to him argue about a future in a house he would never own. "It will be hard," Anna said, her voice softening. It will require you to bite your tongue until it bleeds. But I promise you, when that judge reads the name on the title deed aloud in open court, the look on his face will be worth every second of it." I looked at her, at the fierce loyalty in her eyes. The path was difficult, but the destination was justice. "Okay," I said, a slow, determined smile forming. "Let him build his gallows. I'll hand him the nails." The first test came 2 weeks later, at a tense, unproductive meeting with our lawyers. Marcus's lawyer pontificated about his client's deep, sentimental attachment. Anna just responded calmly, "We will let the court adjudicate the matter." Marcus, baffled and enraged by my refusal to simply roll over, escalated. He decided to attack me socially. The first shot came via a phone call from an old friend, Chloe. Her voice was full of confused, pitying concern. "Naomi, honey, I just had lunch with Marcus," she said. "He told me about the settlement offer. It sounds so generous. Letting you keep more of your business savings if you just let him have the house. He says he just wants it for the sentimental value." I stood in my kitchen, clutching the phone, my knuckles white. He was painting me as the unreasonable, money-grubbing one. He was twisting my silence into proof of my heartlessness. "It's more complicated than that, Chloe," I said, my voice carefully neutral. I couldn't tell her the truth. I had to endure the judgment. I'd rather not discuss the details. The calls kept coming. Each one was a small cut. He wasn't just trying to take my house. He was trying to take my friends, my history, my reputation. Then the emails started. My inbox was suddenly flooded with listings from Zillow and Redfin. Listings he had subscribed me to. New listings you'll love in North Industrial Park. Price drop on this cozy studio near the freeway. Each one was a small digital jab, a passive-aggressive reminder of the bleak, downsized future he had planned for me. I just created a filter to send them all to trash. Then another email landed. This one was from Marcus himself. His tone was breezy. "Naomi, just need to swing by and pick up my golf clubs on Saturday afternoon. Hope that's okay." The doorbell rang at 2 o'clock on Saturday. I opened it, my stomach tight. He was not alone. He stood on my porch, an arrogant smirk on his face, and beside him, clinging to his arm, was Isabel. She was dressed in a ridiculously expensive cream-colored cashmere coat, her face a mask of polite, predatory curiosity. She was here to inspect her future prize. "Naomi," Marcus said, his voice dripping with condescension. "I hope you don't mind. Izzy was just helping me run some errands, so I brought her along. I figured it was time she saw the place in the daylight." He didn't ask. He informed. Before I could respond, he brushed past me, leading Isabel into the entryway as if he were the host and I were the hired help. "It's lovely, darling," Isabel said, her voice that light, airy chime that grated on my nerves. She let her coat slide from her shoulders, revealing a chic black dress, and handed the coat to me without looking, as if I were the maid. I stood there for a beat, the impossibly soft, heavy cashmere in my hands, a symbol of their casual, unthinking insolence. I laid it carefully over a chair, my face a blank mask, while Marcus went to the garage for his clubs, a task that should have taken 5 minutes, but which he stretched into a half-hour tour of the property. Isabel made herself at home. She didn't sit. She wandered. She drifted through my living room, my dining room, her eyes scanning everything, assessing, judging, mentally redecorating. She ran her perfectly manicured, blood-red fingernails over the stone fireplace mantel. "I've always wanted a real wood-burning fireplace," she said, not to me, but to the room. "We'll have so many wonderful Christmases here, won't we, darling?" Marcus was now lingering in the doorway, enjoying the show. She trailed her fingers over the spines of my first edition books. "We'll need to clear some of these out," she murmured, "to make room for a proper media center." She stood in the center of my kitchen, a space I had designed myself. "This is a good start," she said, "but the backsplash is a bit dated, and I think a sub-zero fridge would fit much better in that alcove." She was an invading force, discussing her renovation plans right in front of me. She never once addressed me. She spoke only to Marcus or to the air. Her every word was a calculated act of erasure, making it clear I was already a ghost. I said nothing. I simply followed her, a silent shadow in my own home, my heart a cold, hard knot of rage. With every dismissive comment, she was hammering another nail into their legal coffin. Anna's words echoed in my mind. The higher the pedestal, the harder the fall. They were standing on the peak of Mount Arrogance, admiring the view, completely unaware of the fault line about to open beneath their feet. Marcus finally emerged from my study. "Forgot this," he said. He was holding a small, silver-frame photograph from my desk. It was a picture of my parents, both gone now. He held it out to me. "You'll probably want this," he said, his tone casual. "It'll just clash with the new color scheme Izzy is planning for this room." I took the frame. The glass was cold against my palm. My knuckles were white. I did not give him the satisfaction of a reaction. I just stared at him until he looked away. They finally left. The house felt violated, the air contaminated by Isabel's perfume and their towering entitlement. I stood in the entryway for a long time. Then I went to my office and opened my laptop. I had to work. I had to focus. An email was waiting in my inbox, marked urgent. It was from my biggest client, the one who had funded my agency for a decade. The message was short. "Naomi, I need to speak with you. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that you're having some personal difficulties. Is the project still on track? We need to know if your business is suffering." My blood ran cold. He wasn't just trying to take my house and my friends. He was trying to burn down my life's work. My resolve hardened from steel to diamond. He had come after my home. He had come after my friends. And now he was coming after my agency, the one thing I had built with my own two hands, the very source of the wealth he was so desperate to claim. I called my client immediately. I was calm, professional, and reassuring. I saved the contract, but the damage was done. Marcus was actively trying to sabotage me. I documented the incident, adding it to my growing campaign of harassment file. His pressure wasn't making me weaker. It was making my case stronger. A week later, Anna called. "They've requested formal mediation. It's legally mandated. He'll see it as his stage, his final best chance to bully you into submission before a judge gets involved." The mediator's office was a landscape of beige. Beige walls, beige carpet, beige chairs. It was the most depressing room I had ever been in. Marcus and his lawyer were already there. Marcus was the picture of magnanimity, a man burdened by the sad business of dismantling a life. He wore a somber charcoal suit, his expression one of grave concern. He was performing the role of the good guy. We sat on opposite sides of a large polished table. The mediator, a tired-looking woman, gave a weary speech about cooperation. Then she turned the floor over to Marcus's lawyer. He launched into a monologue, painting Marcus as a man of deep sentimental attachment and incredible generosity. He spoke of Marcus's selfless concern for my future. Then he slid a document across the table. "To that end," the lawyer said, "Mr. Vance is prepared to make an extremely generous offer, one that will bring this unfortunate matter to a swift conclusion." I read it. It was the deal he'd been peddling to our friends, now formalized. He would graciously lower his claim on my business from 50% to 30%, a gift of $600,000 of my own money. He would waive his claim for spousal support. In exchange, I would sign over the title of the house at 125 Willow Creek Lane to him, free and clear. "It's a good deal, Naomi," Marcus said, speaking for the first time. He leaned across the table, his eyes full of counterfeit empathy. "It gives you the lion's share of your company, the asset you care about most. It leaves you with more than enough capital to find a wonderful new place. It allows us to end this with dignity." He was offering to let me keep more of my own money in exchange for the $1.2 million house he had no legal right to. He was selling me a property he didn't own. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of it was almost sublime. He truly believed he was being generous. He truly believed he held all the cards. Anna and I had rehearsed this. I was to say nothing, but all eyes were on me. The mediator, his lawyer, even Anna. They were all waiting. I looked directly at Marcus. I let the silence stretch, enjoying the flicker of anxious impatience in his eyes. He was so certain I would see the logic of his offer. "No," I said. The word was quiet, but it landed in the beige room with the force of a wrecking ball. Marcus stared, his mouth slightly open. "No? What do you mean, no?" "I mean no," I repeated, my voice still quiet, but now imbued with a cold, hard finality. "I'm not willing to do that." I offered no explanation, no counteroffer. Just a simple, two-letter refusal. The effect was magnificent. He was completely, utterly baffled. He looked at his lawyer, who looked equally confused. My refusal didn't make sense in the world they had constructed. Why would I risk a court battle over a house when I was being given a larger piece of my own company? "Naomi, be reasonable," Marcus stammered, his magnanimous facade cracking. "This is the best offer you're going to get. Don't let emotion cloud your judgment." I simply looked at him, and I said nothing. He left the mediation in a state of sputtering, impotent rage. He had played his best card, and I had simply and inexplicably refused. He could not comprehend it. My silence was a strategic move he couldn't counter because he couldn't understand the game I was playing, and his bafflement was a beautiful, satisfying thing to behold. The day of the final divorce hearing arrived on a crisp, mercilessly bright morning in early December. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue, a cruel backdrop for the ugly business of the day. As I dressed, my hands trembled. For months, this day had been an abstract point on the horizon. Now it was here. I chose my outfit with the care of a general selecting his uniform. A simple, beautifully tailored charcoal gray dress, a single strand of my mother's pearls, low, sensible heels. My hair was in its usual neat bun. I was not trying to look younger or more fashionable. I was trying to look exactly like what I was, a competent, serious, and successful woman. I was dressing not for a divorce, but for a board meeting. Anna met me on the steps of the county courthouse, an imposing stone building with grand, intimidating arches. She was in a razor-sharp black pantsuit, her briefcase held like a shield. She gave my hand a firm, reassuring squeeze. "Ready?" she asked, her eyes scanning my face. "No," I said honestly, "but let's do this anyway." The atmosphere inside was hushed and oppressive. We made our way through security, our heels clicking a somber rhythm on the marble floor. We were early, but they were already there. Marcus and Isabel were standing at the far end of the hall, outside our courtroom door. They were not dressed in somber colors. They were dressed for a victory celebration. Marcus wore a perfectly tailored navy suit and a power tie. He looked confident, relaxed, a man on the cusp of a great triumph. And Isabel? Isabel was a vision in a chic, winter white pantsuit. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She looked less like a supportive fiancée and more like a glamorous co-conspirator. They stood close together, holding hands, a united, triumphant front. They were radiating a confidence so absolute, it was almost blinding. They saw us approaching. Marcus's lips curved into a small, confident smile. He nodded at me, a magnanimous gesture from a king to a soon-to-be deposed rival. Isabel's smile was less generous. It was a thin, sharp, pitying line, the smile of a winner who can barely conceal her contempt for the loser. Their message was clear. They had come here to be seen winning. We sat on a bench on the opposite side of the hallway, a stark visual tableau. Anna opened her briefcase and reviewed her notes, a performance of professional calm. My own hands were clasped so tightly in my lap, my knuckles were white. I watched Marcus whisper something in Isabel's ear, making her laugh, a light tinkling sound that echoed in the cold stone hallway. They were performing. I took a deep, steadying breath. Let them have their performance, I thought. Let them enjoy their final moments of arrogant ignorance. The final act is about to begin, and they have no idea the script has been rewritten. The morning session was a tedious grind. We sat at opposing tables. The judge, a stern, no-nonsense woman named Judge Elena Rios, listened with weary patience as our lawyers sparred over the valuation of my business and the division of our stock portfolio. On every point, Marcus's lawyer was aggressive. On every point, Anna was an impenetrable wall, batting away his arguments with cool, surgical precision. The only point on which she was consistently vague was the house. When the topic was raised, she would simply and calmly state, "Your Honor, the disposition of the property at 125 Willow Creek Lane is a matter we believe will be most appropriately adjudicated by the court, based on the legal documentation." She offered no argument, no claim. Just before noon, Judge Rios called for a brief 15-minute recess before they would move on to the final division of the major assets, including the house. The tension was palpable. As we filed out, Anna leaned in. "He's going to try something," she whispered. "This is his last chance to get to you before the hammer falls. Stay strong." I nodded, my mouth dry. I needed air. I walked a little way down the marble hallway toward a large window. I stood there, trying to calm the frantic beating of my heart. I heard footsteps behind me. I didn't need to turn. I could feel his presence, the familiar, arrogant energy. Naomi. He had cornered me. Isabel and his lawyer were at the other end of the hall, giving him space for one final performance. I turned to face him. Before I could react, he reached out and took my hand. His touch was a shock, a jolt of unwanted, counterfeit intimacy. His skin was warm, his grip firm and proprietary. It was a gesture designed to disarm me, to remind me of a time when his touch was a comfort, not a violation. It was the most cynical, calculated gesture I had ever experienced. His face was a mask of sincere, heartfelt concern, a look I knew he had practiced. It was his closing the deal face. "This is madness," he said, his voice a low, reasonable, manipulative plea. "Look at what we're doing, tearing each other apart in front of strangers. We had 20 years together, Naomi. It has to count for something." He squeezed my hand. "We can end this right now, you and I," he said softly. "Just tell the judge we've reached an agreement. We can walk away with our dignity." He was selling me one last beautiful lie. "Naomi, just give me the house," he murmured, his voice soft and condescending, as if explaining a simple truth to a child. "Be the bigger person. You know it's the right thing to do." He was framing his own greed as an opportunity for my moral growth. "It's not just a house to me," he continued, his voice thick with fake emotion. "It's our home. It's where we built our life. I know you're angry, But don't let that anger destroy 20 years of memories. He was weaponizing our shared past, twisting it into a tool to pry my property from my hands. Then came the final, breathtaking blow. He glanced over his shoulder, a small, loving smile directed at Isabel, who was watching them from a distance, a silent, smug spectator. He looked back at me, his expression now one of grave paternal responsibility. "It's not just for me, Naomi," he said, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper. "It's for Izzy, too." My blood froze. "My new wife deserves a fresh start," he said, his eyes pleading with false sincerity. "A beautiful, stable home to begin our life in. She's been through so much with all this ugliness. She deserves this, don't you think?" The sheer, unmitigated audacity of it was like a physical blow. He was standing here, holding my hand, telling me that his 28-year-old mistress deserved my home. He was asking me, the wronged wife, to provide the venue for their happy ending. He was asking me to bless his union with the single greatest asset I owned. He saw the flicker of shock in my eyes and misinterpreted it as indecision. He pressed his advantage. "Think of it, Naomi," he said, his voice full of warm, expansive generosity. "You walk away with your business, your freedom. Izzy and I get to start our new life. Everyone wins. All you have to do is say yes. Just be the gracious, elegant woman I always knew you were." My first instinct was to slap him. My second was to laugh in his face. My third was to unleash a torrent of fury. I did none of those things. Instead, I thought of Anna. I thought of our strategy. I thought of the cold, hard, beautiful logic of the trap we had set. This was the final moment of the charade. I did nothing. I simply looked at him. I looked from his hand, which was still holding mine in its warm, manipulative grip, up to his confident, pleading face. I let my face remain a blank, unreadable mask. Then slowly, deliberately, I pulled my hand away from his. It was not a sharp, angry snatch. It was a slow, final, and unequivocal withdrawal of contact, a severing. I said nothing. My silence was absolute. It was not an angry silence or a hurt silence. It was an empty silence, a void. Marcus was utterly baffled. He had been prepared for tears, for anger, for a final emotional capitulation. He was not prepared for nothing. My silence was a language he did not speak. "Naomi," he said, his confident smile faltering for the first time. "Did you hear what I said?" I continued to look at him, my expression unchanging. "This is your last chance to be reasonable," he said, a note of frustration, of panic, creeping into his voice. "Don't force my hand in there. You won't like the outcome." He was resorting to threats. I still said nothing. He stared at me for another agonizing moment, searching my face for some flicker of emotion he could latch onto. He found nothing. Finally, with a frustrated, exasperated sigh, he gave up. He misinterpreted my silence as defeated resignation. He believed my spirit was finally broken. He thought he had won. A slow, confident smirk returned to his face. "Fine," he said, straightening his tie, his arrogant swagger returning. "Have it your way. Don't say I didn't try to be the good guy." He turned on his heel and walked back toward Isabel, a victorious general returning to his troops. I watched him give her a triumphant little kiss. They thought my silence was my surrender. They had no idea it was my victory lap. We re-entered the courtroom. Marcus gave his lawyer a subtle, triumphant nod, a silent communication that I had been handled. He sat down and gave Isabel's hand a confident squeeze. I took my seat beside Anna. My heart was a trip hammer, but my face was calm. Judge Rios entered. She put on her reading glasses. "We will now address the final and most significant asset, the primary residence located at 125 Willow Creek Lane." The courtroom was silent. I chanced a glance at Marcus. He was leaning forward in his chair, a broad, confident smile on his face. He looked like a man waiting to hear his name announced as the winner of the lottery. He was so close to his prize, he could taste it. His lawyer stood up, his voice booming with unearned confidence. Your Honor, my client, Mr. Vance, has a deep and abiding connection to this property. It was the marital home for 20 years. He wishes to continue residing there. To that end, he has been more than generous in his offers regarding the division of other assets. Judge Rios listened to his speech without expression. When he was finished, she simply said, "Thank you, counsel. Please be seated." She then looked down at the folder in front of her. "The court," she said, her voice slow and deliberate, "has reviewed all the submitted financial disclosures. And more importantly, the court has reviewed the official title deed for the property in question, as filed with the County Recorder's Office on May 10th, 2007. Marcus's smile widened. This was it, the formalization of his victory. He shot me a quick, triumphant look across the aisle. The judge adjusted her glasses and continued, her gaze fixed on the document. This is a simple matter. As it turns out, the legal ownership of the property is not, and has never been, a point of contention. I saw Marcus's lawyer frown, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. This wasn't the language he was expecting. Marcus, however, seemed not to notice, his smile firmly in place. The judge looked back down at the document, her finger tracing a line of text. The property at 125 Willow Creek Lane is registered to one. She paused. In that split second of silence, the entire world held its breath. Naomi Dubois. The name, my old name, echoed in the silent courtroom. It was the sound of a bomb detonating in slow motion. Marcus's smile froze. It didn't fall. It just stopped. It was a grotesque mask of confusion, an expression caught between triumph and a dawning monstrous horror. Dubois? Who is Naomi Dubois? Judge Rios, oblivious, continued in her dry, factual tone. It is listed on the deed and corroborated by the mortgage origination documents as, and I quote, her sole and separate property, acquired prior to the formalization of her married name. She finally looked up, her gaze sweeping over Marcus's frozen, uncomprehending face, then his lawyer's, which was now a mask of slack-jawed disbelief. She looked at me, a flicker of something, understanding, perhaps even grim satisfaction, in her tired eyes. She delivered the final, devastating blow. The name on the deed is hers, and hers alone. The smile on Marcus's face did not just die. It shattered. It imploded. The confident mask fell away, revealing the raw, ugly face of pure shock. His jaw went slack. The color drained from his face, leaving a pasty, sickly gray. His eyes, so full of victory moments before, were now wide with a wild, panicked disbelief. He looked at me, a silent, desperate question. How? I did not smile. I did not gloat. I simply met his gaze, my expression calm, my heart finally still. Therefore, Judge Rio stated, her voice bringing the hammer down, the court finds that the property at 125 Willow Creek Lane is not a marital asset and is not subject to division in these proceedings. It is, and shall remain, the sole and separate property of the petitioner, Ms. Vance. We will now move on. The rest of her words were just a dull, meaningless drone. The battle was over. The checkmate had been delivered. The moment the judge called the next recess, Marcus erupted. He turned on his own lawyer, his voice a venomous hiss. How did you miss this? How? You're a divorce lawyer. Isn't a title search the first thing you do? I've been paying you a fortune, and you missed the single most important document. His lawyer, his entire reputation publicly dismantled, could only stammer, we assumed, the length of the marriage. I didn't stay to watch. Anna and I gathered our papers and walked out of the courtroom. The rest of the divorce was a swift and brutal affair for Marcus. Without the leverage of the house, his entire case collapsed. His audacious demands for my business and for spousal support were dismissed by the judge as frivolous and without merit. I heard through the grapevine what happened next. When Isabel discovered that the $1.2 million house and the lavish lifestyle she had signed up for were not, in fact, part of the deal, she promptly and unceremoniously ended their engagement. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, a small moving truck pulled up to my house. I wasn't there. I had arranged for a service to pack the last of Marcus's belongings and put them in a storage unit. The first month's rent was paid by me, a final ironic act of generosity. That evening, I returned home with Anna. The house was finally, truly mine. The last ghost had been exorcised. We stood on the porch, and I pulled out my keys. The keychain was new. It just held one key, the key to my front door. I unlocked my door, and we stepped inside. The house was quiet, filled with the soft golden light of the setting sun. It smelled of lemon polish and the faint, beautiful scent of the freesias I had bought for myself that morning. Anna handed me a bottle of champagne. "A housewarming gift?" she said with a grin. "For the new owner." I took the bottle, the glass cold and solid in my hand. A slow, genuine smile spread across my face. "I'm not the new owner," I said. "I'm the original one." If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.